Hey everyone, it is Wednesday, and by now you know what that means. That means we bring back Anna Kelly for our expert series. How you doing, Anna?
I'm great today. How are you, Michael?
I'm doing really, really well. As you know, the CDC came out of nowhere yesterday with this thing. I sent you a message saying, "Did you see this coming?" You're like, "What are you talking about? I have to go read it." What are your thoughts about that?
Unbelievable. So Trump issued the CDC, Centers for Disease Control,
Yep.
the authority to put a moratorium on evictions through the end of the year.
Yep.
So it's interesting, Michael, that the CDC doesn't have authority anymore to track the coronavirus,
Yeah.
but they do have authority somehow to, mitigate evictions. So it was completely out of left field, completely shocking to me. But once I started thinking about it, I'm like, it's a pretty cool political move.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, it actually has some benefits to landlords too.
Yeah.
So we can talk about that a little
Yeah, I
bit.
think I think there's like multiple levels here. First off, the headline that came out, and it was the headline everywhere. CDC stops eviction. CDC moratorium. CDC, CDC, CDC. And I'm like, does CDC stand for something else? I mean, is this really disease control that's impacting my, breaking leases now, which is again in the US Constitution? Can't be. So of course you click in, you see it. Yes, it is the Center for Disease Control. And you're right. This goes back to those executive orders. I think he signed 3 or 4 of them last month. And as you read it, it looks like the first thing he did is he authorized CDC to look at if evictions could potentially help spread the virus. That's how CDC got involved, right? Does
Right.
kicking people out of their home, either forcing them to live in the street or move in with other family members, could that theoretically spread the virus? And that is the thing that CDC has anchored themselves on. They have come out and said unequivocally yes, and thus that gives them the control to make this claim, which is an interesting stretch to say the least. But to
Especially when 94% of the population don't get coronavirus.
yeah, yeah.
So, it's one of those things. What has not ceased to amaze me, Michael, during all of this is how many pieces of legislation are so broad swath. It's
Mhm.
like everyone gets, foreclosure forbearances.
Right.
Everybody gets, eviction relief, and very few things that are targeted to just those people that need it.
Mhm.
The one thing I will say that I thought was positive is where you see some states and local municipalities banning all evictions
Yeah.
for any reason that people can't pay during this time.
Mhm.
It seems like the executive order did make clear that people still will owe their landlords their full amount of rent,
Mhm.
that they are expected to take their benefits and unemployment benefits
Mhm.
and to pay their rent,
Mhm.
and that if they don't, there will be consequences. So it seemed to try to, fix it for both sides. So,
Mhm.
giving tenants the leeway if they need it to not pay because of impact of coronavirus, but saying, hey, this isn't a free lunch. And
Right.
I'm hoping that by it being an executive order, maybe it stops some other, local and regional,
Right.
governing authorities from making even tighter eviction moratoriums than what the federal government is now mandating.
Yeah, I mean, again, I read if there was actually, I don't know if you've seen it, but I think it's a 37-page document. It's really more like 20 pages because it's all formatting and all nonsense that the CDC put out on their site. I read it, and it's actually not as bad as the headlines read, right? First off, it does have more teeth, right? It's only for the tenants impacted. They have to declare. Also, I don't know if you saw this, but there are income thresholds, just like the $1,200 stimulus check. So this basically pushes this order to the lower income scales, right? Because if you make more than $99,000 as an individual or $198,000 as a family, this doesn't cover you. You are expected to pay your rent. Uh,
Correct. And I'm
so
quite frankly surprised that the numbers were that high. I
yeah,
mean, people making $200,000 a year, are probably not struggling to pay their rent. But, I think this is just my opinion, and I don't like to get too political, as you know,
Yeah.
but it seems like this is a piece of legislation that says, if you're poor, this is for you. If you're middle class, this is for you, because most benefits don't help the middle class.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Or slightly above middle class.
Mm-hmm.
And this seems to have some help for people all the way up to 200,000.
Yeah.
And oh, by the way, if you're a landlord, it's better for you because they have to prove necessity.
Yep.
So, I think it was a very smart, expedient political move. Let's see what it really does.
Yeah, there's I agree with you. When I looked at this, it freaked me out, right? What the hell is CDC doing? Then I took the time to read it. It takes like 30 or 35 minutes to read it. And I'm like, the thing I was left with was just that. This was a chess move by a politician who knows he's in trouble. And he has basically said, I'm going to do something for the lower income scale and middle class that the rest of Congress isn't doing. And I could just see him playing this up over and over. I mean, I can see it becoming the drumbeat in all the ads. Hey, look at me. I staved off evictions. Hey, look at me. I goosed unemployment 300. It's like, I mean, man, he's trying to show another side to himself that maybe he's not the person he's put out there the last 3.5 years. I think it's a genius move.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, I did not see that coming. And it makes sense, right?
Yeah, so many surprises. Nothing amazes me anymore.
Yeah. And then from a landlord perspective, you're so right, because it does have teeth. There's the income thresholds, right? So if you're a landlord in San Francisco, Manhattan, the really expensive cities, your tenants have to pay, right? You can evict them, assuming local ordinances don't protect them, of course. It is, but it is going to help the most people. It's pretty broad. You have to prove every month that you're impacted. If you do get federal aid, it's coming. The one thing that I saw coming that is not out yet is typically when CDC gets involved, right? They go declare something. Typically right after that, my experience, money shows up, right? So what I see coming is maybe it's from the HUD, maybe it's from some other vehicle, but they're going to throw money behind this, which will then become the kitty where both landlords and tenants win. Because like you said earlier, this is not rent forgiveness. It's, rent delay.
Correct.
And I could see the HUD and some local municipalities going, hey, we're going to cover the last 3 months for tenant A and tenant B, and maybe a month and a half for tenant C.
Yeah.
Because right now I have tenants that owe like somewhere between $8,000 and $12,000 because they haven't paid since March. It's not a lot, but it's growing every month at this point.
Right.
So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Money has to show up.
Yeah, for sure. And one thing that this made me think about too, Michael, is several people have reached out to me in Pennsylvania and elsewhere who have had counties who've come in and said, hey, we're going to pay, like $1,500 toward your tenant's rent, but in exchange for doing so, you can't evict them for another 6 months. And so it's like, I'm saying, no way, if it's, if you don't have to say, I can't evict them for another 6 months, don't. So it's better that at least at a national level, there's a mandate that says, oh, you have to pay.
Yeah.
So anything that I do with tenants is going to say, listen, the national mandate is you have to pay. We'll continue to work with you and we'll help you, but you've got to make payments and you've got to provide us proof and evidence that you've really been impacted. Yeah. And we've essentially been doing that from the beginning anyway, since all of this started. But I'm thankful that the legislation makes that very clear so that we can point them back and say, this isn't a get out of jail free card.
Yeah, there's no free rent. This is not a rent strike. There's not this CDC. I actually like the order. Because again, if you're sick or someone in your family is sick or all of these other things, even though I'm a landlord and I have some huge balances, if one of my tenants had it and just couldn't pay, I'd waive the rent. It's just the right thing to do as a human being.
Right.
But that said, I have a couple of tenants who saw the headlines and decided to party all the time and they're not following the lease and throwing parties and doing all these other things. I need to get bad actors out. And the beauty of this legislation, again, it's in the CDC article, is if the tenants break any other aspect of the lease, you can evict them.
Right.
So now I have
really all that landlords have wanted and have argued for the
Yes.
most part anyway. I mean, good landlords are not out there to say, we don't care about people, we're going to kick them all out.
Yeah.
But it's like, let us make the decisions based on contract law and based on our contract that says, you've got to follow these rules.
Yep.
You know, we'll work with you during the pandemic, but any other reason is no excuse. And we need to be able to get someone out and get somebody in that's going to, you know, follow the lease, abide by the rules, and do their best to pay.
Yeah, that's all I've ever wanted is I want to get bad actors out. And again, I don't know what it is. 98% of my tenants are wonderful people, hardworking, do the right thing. All they want is a safe, secure place to raise their family. That's true in a pandemic and not in a pandemic, right? I've said that for a long time. It's always that 1%, that 1% that makes it hard. And they take advantage. This one individual I know that's got an $8,500 or $8,500 back balance of rent. He will take me up to the last day of the sheriff showing up, which, oh, by the way, is probably going to be 12 to 14 months of free rent. I know it. And he'll just ghost me right at the end.
Yeah.
It's coming. So
it's tough.
Yeah. Any other thoughts as you look at this? I don't think it's nearly as bad as the headlines read. I think it's a tremendous political maneuver that I didn't see coming. Any other thoughts as we kind of wrap up this CDC talk?
You know, I think just, you know, when we try to plan for the future, there's so much that's unknown. And, you know, every week it seems there's something big that's going, whoa, didn't see that coming. Whoa, didn't see that coming. You know, so you mitigate what you can, and you just realize that there's, you know, this thing isn't quite over. Some landlords are kind of relaxing, thinking, oh, this thing's, you know, slowing down, it's over. You know, this isn't quite over. And I think that we still have to be, you know, cautious and conservative, you know, have some reserves and, you know, just wait and see how things play out. But overall, I think this puts us in a better position, honestly, than where we were 2 days ago.
I agree with that. I guess the one question I just want to ask that just popped in my head is this latest left field thing changing what you're looking at in either buying or selling? Or will you buy more, sell more, lower your criteria, anything because of this, or not really?
No, not really, because we pretty much knew that, you know, legislators were looking to potentially extend the eviction moratorium through the end of the year anyway. So it just is what it is.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. Well, thank you very much for this. We are going to have another Anna interview here in just a minute. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.